Hey guys, tonight we are stepping into the soft calorie-counted world of a 1950s housewife, trying to stay trim in a kitchen full of butter, cake mix, luncheon meat, coffee, children's snacks, and one women's magazine quietly suggesting that her waistline may be a public responsibility. On the surface, it looks almost tidy. The bathroom scale is waiting, the grapefruit is chilled, the girdle is folded in a drawer like a small elastic warning, and every advertisement seems sure that a woman can become slim, cheerful, rested, charming, and ready for company if she simply eats less, smiles more, buys the right cereal, and treats cottage cheese with a level of hope it has not fully earned. But beneath all that bright advice was a real and often tiring pressure. This was not only about vanity. It was about marriage, respectability, fashion, magazines, doctors, neighbours, department store mirrors, bridge club comparison, and the strange belief that a woman's body should remain neat, controlled, youthful, and grateful at all times, preferably while cooking generous meals for everyone else. The 1950s promised abundance after years of depression and war, and in many homes that promise was real. There was more food on shelves, more modern packaging, more frozen food, more convenience meals, more sugar in the house, and more ways to turn dinner into a small domestic performance. At the same time, women were told to enjoy this plenty without letting it show on the hips, which is a bold request from a culture that kept putting mayonnaise into salads with complete confidence. Of course, this did not look the same for everyone. Money, race, region, age, paid work, health, family size, and access to doctors or stores all changed the story. Some women were praised for looking trim because they had time, money, and help. Others stayed thin because life was hard, food was stretched, work was heavy, or worry had already done what no reducing menu could. Still, across much of popular middle-class culture, thinness was treated as discipline, beauty, youth, and proof that a woman was keeping herself under control. Tonight, we are not here to admire that pressure. We are here to wander through it quietly, open the cupboard, read the advice column, inspect the scale, and notice how much work could be hidden inside the polite little phrase watching your figure. If you enjoy these quiet journeys into the everyday parts of history that somehow explain entire civilizations through breakfast, please like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to. No pressure. There has already been enough pressure in this episode, and we have not even reached the dress zipper. And leave a comment telling me where you are listening from and what time it is there, because somewhere it is 2 a.m, and somewhere else, someone has just remembered eating half a ham sandwich over the sink in 1957 and calling it a light bite. The channel is also on Spotify, so if you prefer drifting off while a calm stranger explains grapefruit halves, diet plates, girdle logic, cigarette breaks, and the emotional burden of cottage cheese, the link is in the description. Now dim the lights, put a fan on if you have one, pull the blanket up, turn the pillow to the cool side, and get truly comfortable. Because tonight you're going to spend an entire day in a 1950s home, where the coffee is percolating, the refrigerator is humming, the bathroom scale is waiting, and the women's magazine has strong opinions about lunch. What do you eat for breakfast when every article says a good wife should be slender, energetic, cheerful, and somehow satisfied by half a grapefruit? How do you bake a cake for your family without eating the corner piece that has clearly broken away for emotional reasons? What do you say when a doctor offers help with appetite as casually as if he were suggesting a new soap powder? How do you sit through a luncheon where every woman praises the salad and then quietly notices every other woman's plate? How tight can a girdle be before it becomes less of a garment and more of a household negotiation? And how many times can one culture tell women to cook beautifully while eating carefully before the entire kitchen begins to feel personally unfair? Congratulations. You have just woken up in a 1950s bedroom. The sun is coming through the curtains, your slippers are beside the bed, and the scale in the bathroom has decided to begin the day without kindness. Let's start there, because apparently breakfast must first be approved by a small metal platform. You stand barefoot on the cool bathroom tile while the house is still quiet, holding your breath as if air itself might be counted against you. The scale sits beneath you with its little round dial, neat, low, and far too confident for an object that lives near towels. In the 1950s home, this small platform can feel like more than a tool. It becomes a morning witness. It tells you whether yesterday's dinner, the child's leftover toast, a late bite of cake, or the spoonful of frosting you absolutely did not mean to finish has become part of the official record. You step off gently, as though politeness might improve the number. The day has begun with arithmetic. The bathroom itself is not large. There is a porcelain sink with separate hot and cold taps, a small cabinet with aspirin, cold cream, bobby pins, and things no one discusses at breakfast. A towel folded, as if guests might arrive to inspect it before sunrise, and perhaps a faint smell of powder, soap, and damp cotton. The house is still asleep, but the scale is very much awake. It has no interest in your children, your laundry, your grocery money, your tired feet, or the fact that you spent yesterday producing meals for other people while trying not to take too much for yourself. It only knows the number. That is its whole personality, which is why no one has ever invited a bathroom scale to coffee. There is always the small temptation to step on again, to shift one foot, to stand taller, to give the needle a second chance at becoming a kinder citizen. The scale does not appreciate these efforts. It remains low, round, and stubbornly awake. In the years after the war, many middle-class homes filled with signs of modern comfort. Better kitchens, brighter bathrooms, new appliances, packaged food, and magazines that made daily life look smooth and promising. But the same culture that praised abundance also watched women's bodies closely. A trim figure was often treated as a sign of discipline, youth, self-respect, and good management. It could be tied to beauty, marriage, fashion, and the quiet fear of being judged by people who said they were only concerned for your health. The language was usually soft. Watch your figure. Keep your shape. Do not let yourself go. These phrases sounded almost gentle, as if a woman's body were a small garden that needed regular weeding, but they could settle over the morning like a net. You look down again, even though you have already seen the number. Perhaps the dial was not settled. Perhaps your feet were placed wrong. Perhaps the floor is slightly uneven, which is a theory worth considering when hope needs somewhere to stand. Some women weigh themselves daily. Some avoid it until a dress becomes difficult. Some are weighed by doctors, reducing clubs, beauty salons, or the unforgiving society of zippers. The scale does not invent the pressure by itself. It simply gives it a number and makes it small enough to fit beneath the sink. That is the strange power of it. A whole culture of advice, comments, advertisements, girdles, recipes, and glances can be reduced to a needle trembling over a mark. You reach for your robe and feel the fabric settle around your shoulders. Downstairs, the kitchen will soon demand breakfast. Coffee will have to be made. Toast will need attention. Perhaps there will be eggs, cereal, grapefruit, or the quiet sadness of dry bread pretending to be enough. You may be trying to reduce because a magazine told you a new dress would look better. You may be trying because your husband made a remark he forgot before dessert. You may be trying because after children your body feels disgusted by everyone except you. Or you may simply live in a world where women are expected to notice themselves constantly, even in the private half-light before the kettle boils. There is a special unfairness in beginning the day this way. Before anyone has thanked you, before anyone has asked how you slept, before the family has even misplaced its first sock, you have already been measured. Not as tired, useful, loving, patient, skilled, or hungry, just lighter or heavier. The scale cannot tell whether you stretched the housekeeping money, soothed a crying child, mended a hem, wrote 3 letters, remembered the dentist, or carried the emotional weather of the house on your back. It cannot tell whether you are well. It cannot tell whether you are happy. It cannot even tell whether yesterday's cake was worth it, though that is a question historians may continue to debate. You slide the scale back into place with your foot. It disappears under the edge of the sink, pretending to be harmless. Soon the bathroom will fill with ordinary noises. Water running. Toothpaste being squeezed badly. Someone knocking because they suddenly need the room you were using in perfect peace. But for this small early moment, you have stood alone with a number, and all the meaning the decade has taught you to place inside it. You tie your robe, smooth your hair with one hand, and open the bathroom door. The house is waiting. Breakfast is waiting. The day is waiting. The scale, having contributed nothing useful, is also waiting. You sit at the kitchen table with a women's magazine open beside your coffee, its pages smelling faintly of ink, powder, and cheerful authority. A smiling woman on the page appears to have solved beauty, marriage, laundry and hunger with one slim waist and a small bowl of something pale. The advice sounds friendly. That is part of the problem. Eat lightly, keep busy, watch your figure, stay attractive. Try this menu. Refuse that second helping. The magazine does not shout. It simply leans into the morning and suggests that a better woman might already be thinner by lunch. The kitchen is bright enough now to make everything look possible. Sunlight lies across the table. The sugar bowl sits nearby, pretending not to be involved. Your coffee sends up a little steam, warm and forgiving, while the magazine spreads itself across the oilcloth with the calm importance of a visiting expert. It has recipes on one page and reducing advice on another, which is an efficient way to create emotional confusion. Here is a cake your family will adore. Here is a waistline you must defend from the cake. Here is a model in a narrow skirt, standing beside a chair as if sitting down has never occurred to her. The magazine does not see a contradiction. It has turned the page and moved on. Women's magazines in the 1950s often offered a whole world inside their covers. Beauty tips, household hints, menus, fashion, childcare, marriage advice, cleaning shortcuts, and little warnings about becoming careless. Many of these magazines were genuinely useful. They gave recipes, sewing ideas, budgeting help, and a sense of connection to women who might spend long days at home. But they also carried the culture's expectations in a soft voice. They told you how to make dinner, how to greet your husband, how to freshen your face, how to organize a linen closet, and how to reduce without becoming unpleasant about it. The advice could be practical and absurd at the same time. That is a common arrangement in history. You turn a page and find a reducing menu. Breakfast is modest, lunch is disciplined. Dinner is planned so that the family eats normally while you remain under careful supervision. There may be cottage cheese, lettuce, black coffee, a broiled chop, a canned peach, or a dessert that has been modified until joy has left the premises. The words are brisk and sensible. They make hunger sound like a scheduling problem. If you are hungry, drink water. If you are tempted, take a walk. If you are discouraged, imagine your new figure in a spring dress. This is not exactly cruel. It is worse in some ways because it is encouraging. It wants you to believe the whole matter is simple. You only need willpower, a menu, a bathroom scale, and the cheerful acceptance of being surrounded by food you should not eat. The photographs make it harder. Women smile over plates that would not satisfy a small bird with social anxiety. Their hair is set, their lipstick is fresh, their waists are narrow. Nobody in the picture appears to have children asking for cereal, a husband expecting supper, or a grocery budget making quiet threats from the drawer. The models seem rested. That is how you know they have not just cleaned egg from a chair. You take a sip of coffee and keep reading. The magazine may praise slenderness as health, beauty, energy, and charm. It may suggest that a wife owes it to herself, and perhaps also to her marriage, to keep her figure. The phrase sounds light, almost playful, but the meaning is not light. It places a woman's body inside the general duties of housekeeping. Keep the floors clean, keep the children neat, keep the meals attractive, keep yourself attractive. Do not let the furniture, the budget, the laundry, or the waistline show signs of strain. Everything must be maintained, including you. Of course, women did not simply swallow every line without thought. Many read these magazines with judgment, humour, irritation, or selective attention. You may take the recipe and ignore the advice. You may laugh with a friend about the woman who claims she is satisfied by celery. You may clip a helpful menu and still eat the pie when company leaves. Readers were not foolish. They knew life was more complicated than a column made it sound. Still, repeated advice has a way of becoming background noise. It does not need to command you if it can whisper often enough. The magazine rests beside your cup, patient and glossy. It tells you that the home can be managed, the body can be managed, the appetite can be managed, and happiness may follow once everything has been put in its proper place. This is a lovely thought, if one does not look too closely at who is doing all the managing. You fold the page corner, perhaps for the recipe, perhaps for the reducing plan, perhaps because part of you wants to remember and part of you wishes the page would mind its own business. The coffee cools. The kitchen clock moves on. Soon there will be breakfast dishes, grocery decisions, and a house full of ordinary work. The magazine remains open, smiling up from the table. It has offered dessert with one hand and warned you about dessert with the other. Very helpful in the way a trap can be well organized. You place half a grapefruit on a small plate and look at it as though it has been placed in charge of your future. Its pink flesh shines under the kitchen light, cold, bright, and sharper than the breakfast you wanted. Diet menus of the period often treated grapefruit with deep respect, as if sour fruit contained secret instructions for self-control. You cut around each section with a little spoon, while coffee perks nearby and toast appears for other people with the ease of inherited wealth. The grapefruit is not terrible. It is fresh and brisk. It is simply not a pancake, and everyone understands this. The little bowl or plate sits before you like a decision already made. The rind is thick. The juice gathers in shining pockets. When your spoon slips, a small spray lands on the table, and the fruit announces itself through scent before taste. Clean, sharp, almost medicinal. It wakes the mouth in a way that suggests discipline has a flavour, and that flavour is not maple syrup. Grapefruit had been part of dieting advice for decades before the 1950s, and it carried a special reputation in popular reducing plans. It was bright, low in calories compared with richer foods, easy to serve, and useful for making breakfast look intentional rather than empty. Half a grapefruit on a plate has a certain elegance. It looks as though you have chosen restraint, not merely been assigned it by a magazine with very firm ideas about hips. You hold the little spoon and work carefully around each section. There is a slow ritual to it. Cut, loosen, lift, swallow. The fruit requires attention, which may be part of the point. A large breakfast can disappear without much thought. Grapefruit makes you participate. It asks you to earn every chilled mouthful with small acts of surgery. Across the table, perhaps your husband has eggs and toast. Perhaps a child has cereal, milk, and the fearless belief that sugar belongs to childhood by law. You are not starving. That would be too dramatic, and not true in many homes. You are simply eating in a way that reminds you, every few seconds, that you are trying. This is how much of mid-century dieting entered the day. Not always through grand plans, but through small substitutions. Fruit instead of pastry, black coffee instead of cream, dry toast instead of buttered toast, a small chop instead of a generous one. Lettuce where potatoes might have been happier. Each choice is tiny. Together, they become a second household schedule, running beneath the first. You are feeding other people while editing yourself. The grapefruit helps because it seems innocent. It is not a pill, it is not a lecture, it is fruit, yet the meaning attached to it is larger than breakfast. In popular culture, reducing foods often became moral objects. Cottage cheese was sensible, lettuce was clean, grapefruit was brisk, cake was danger in a frosted hat, potatoes were comforting but suspicious, butter was delicious, and therefore not to be trusted alone. These foods were not only foods anymore. They had characters, and grapefruit had been cast as the stern but useful aunt. You take another spoonful. The first bite is tart enough to make your face reconsider its public duties. You may sprinkle a little sugar over it if the menu allows, or if the menu does not happen to be present in the room. Sugar softens the fruit, which makes breakfast better and the advice less successful. This is the constant negotiation. How much pleasure can be added before the point has been lost? How much restraint can be practiced before the morning becomes annoying to everyone, including the spoon? The coffee pot clicks and sighs. The kitchen smells of toast, citrus, and warm metal. Outside, the day is beginning. Inside, you are already balancing appetite, appearance, and time. You may tell yourself the grapefruit is refreshing. It is. You may tell yourself it is enough. That depends on what the morning intends to ask of you. Beds do not become easier because breakfast was light. Children do not reduce their number of questions out of respect for citrus. Laundry does not pause and say, "You seem to be dieting. I will handle myself." The body must still move, lift, bend, sweep, carry, and think. This is one of the quiet problems with reducing advice made for women whose days were full of unpaid work. It often treated hunger like a small personal flaw rather than a body asking for fuel. Still, you sit there in the soft morning light, doing what many women did. You make the effort. You follow the suggestion. You give the grapefruit its moment of authority. Perhaps you truly enjoy it. Perhaps it becomes a habit you almost like. Not every diet food is punishment, and not every woman experiences the same pressure in the same way. Some women choose, adapt, ignore, bargain, or laugh. You might finish the fruit, drink your coffee, and feel clean and ready. You might finish it and begin thinking about lunch before the spoon is dry. Both things can be true. When the last section is gone, only the rind remains, pale and hollow in its dish. It looks virtuous, which is more than many breakfasts can say. You carry the plate to the sink and rinse away the sharp little threads of pulp. The grapefruit has done its duty. Whether it has done breakfast is another matter. You pour coffee into a cup and watch the dark surface tremble as the kitchen settles around you. The smell is warm and comforting, which helps because the meal itself may be doing less work. For a woman trying to reduce, breakfast might shrink into coffee, fruit, dry toast, or something small enough to look virtuous on a saucer. The trouble is that the morning does not shrink with it. Children need lunches, beds need making. Laundry waits with confidence. A husband leaves after eating something more solid. You sip the coffee and remind yourself that energy would be useful, if only someone had served some. The percolator makes its soft, busy sound on the stove, a little domestic engine working harder than your breakfast. Coffee is one of the great comforts of the mid-century kitchen. It smells like adulthood, company, early mornings, late nights, neighbours at the table, and the small private moment before everyone begins needing things. You wrap your fingers around the cup and feel its heat through the china. There may be cream nearby, but cream has become a decision. Sugar has become a decision. Even the spoon looks as though it expects an explanation. Reducing advice often treated black coffee as a useful ally. It filled the cup, warmed the hands, and gave the mouth something to do. It could stand in for a pause, a treat, or, rather unfairly, a meal. A cup of coffee beside a grapefruit half or a thin slice of toast looked adult and controlled. It also looked like the sort of breakfast that might become hungry again before the sink was empty. Still, you drink it slowly. The first sip is bitter, hot, and familiar. It gives you a small lift, the kind that feels almost like optimism, until the toast crumbs appear and the day reveals its schedule. In the 1950s, coffee belonged everywhere. Breakfast tables, office desks, church basements, bridge clubs, beauty salons, diners, and living rooms. It was hospitality in a cup, and sometimes an appetite held back by steam. The kitchen could become a little system of delay. Drink coffee. Stay busy. Smoke if you smoke. Have fruit. Think about lunch later. The body unfortunately keeps its own appointment book. You glance toward the plates. Your husband may eat eggs, toast, bacon, cereal, or whatever the household can afford and habit allows. The children may eat oatmeal, cereal, toast with jam, or the last piece of fruit you had planned to save. You make the food, pour the milk, wipe a spill, and answer questions while your own breakfast remains something you can hold in one hand. This is one of those small scenes where the pressure hides because everything looks normal. A woman drinking coffee in a kitchen is not dramatic. It is simply a morning. But inside that morning sits a whole idea about women's bodies. You should feed others well. You should not need too much yourself. You should be energetic without eating like someone who requires energy. You should remain cheerful while refusing the soft parts of breakfast that make breakfast worth getting up for. You set down the cup and perhaps reach for dry toast. Dry toast has an air of punishment that it does not entirely deserve. It is warm, it is crisp, it has potential, but without butter, it becomes a food with unfinished business. You take a bite and hear it crack softly. Crumbs fall onto the plate. The coffee helps. It washes down the dryness and allows the whole arrangement to pass as breakfast if no one asks too many questions. Real mornings are messier than printed menus. A child leaves half a piece of toast. The edge of a pancake remains. A spoonful of scrambled egg is too small to save but too good to throw away. These are the dangerous little foods of motherhood and housekeeping. They are not meals, so they do not feel like eating. They are simply tidying with the mouth, which is a method history has never properly respected. The coffee cools while you pack lunches, spreading peanut butter, slicing meat, wrapping sandwiches in wax paper, placing an apple where a cookie would have been more popular. You smell food without eating it. You handle bread without enjoying it. You know what everyone likes, what they will refuse, what will come home uneaten, and what might cause complaint if missing. Your own cup waits on the table, slowly losing heat, which is the usual fate of women's beverages in houses with children. When you return, it is lukewarm. You drink it anyway, because waste is not welcome and because coffee has become the official witness to your morning discipline. Not every woman lived by reducing menus, of course. Some ate heartily, some worked outside the home and needed more, some had no room in the budget for special diet foods, and some had learned from hard years that food was not something to refuse casually. But the popular image of the slim, controlled housewife gave many women a script. Breakfast could be small, appetite could be postponed. Thinness could be treated as proof that a woman was managing herself as carefully as she managed the house. You rinsed the cup and watched the brown swirl disappear down the sink. The coffee was pleasant. The breakfast was polite. The laundry, unlike your plate, remains full. You stand at the stove deciding whether one boiled egg and one slice of toast can carry a whole morning without complaint. The toast rises warm and fragrant, already asking for butter in the innocent voice of bread. Butter rests in the refrigerator, yellow and calm, pretending it has no influence over national waistlines. Reducing advice often turned ordinary foods into small negotiations. Scrape, do not spread. Measure, do not trust. Take one slice, not two. Eat slowly, as if slowness could turn breakfast into company. You place the toast on the plate and feel the whole kitchen watching your knife. The egg sits in its cup or on its saucer, smooth, pale, and respectable. It has the modest confidence of a food that appears in many diet plans, because it seems useful, tidy, and hard to accuse of frivolity. Protein, though people at the table may not use that word with much interest, has a reputation for keeping a person going. The egg is small enough to feel controlled and solid enough to feel like breakfast has not been entirely abandoned. You tap the shell with a spoon and peel it carefully, trying not to burn your fingers. A little steam rises. The yolk is warm, yellow, and almost cheerful. Beside it, the toast cools and waits for judgment. Butter is where the trouble begins. Butter, in the 1950s kitchen, is not only a spread. It is flavour, comfort, baking, hospitality, mashed potatoes, toast, sandwiches, and the difference between a meal that feels cared for and one that feels supervised by a committee. Earlier years of shortage and rationing had taught many families to value fat, sugar, meat, and other rich foods. Post-war abundance made them more available in many homes, though never equally for everyone. Then popular reducing advice turned around and told women to be careful with them. The culture had spent years longing for plenty, and now it was asking women to treat plenty as a test. You open the refrigerator and take out the butter dish. The cold air moves around your hand. The butter is firm, smooth, and very aware of its own appeal. If you cut a thick pat, the toast will become breakfast in the full emotional sense. If you scrape a thin shine across the surface, you may still claim discipline. The difference is small enough to seem silly and large enough to matter in the private mathematics of dieting. You choose carefully. The knife drags over the toast, leaving a faint yellow mark that looks less like generosity and more like a rumour. You may add salt to the egg. Salt, at least, is not being accused this morning. You eat slowly, because advice columns are always recommending slowness, usually in homes where no one is asking where the lunchbox went. Chew carefully. Put the fork down between bites. Let the meal last. This sounds reasonable until the child drops something, the kettle needs attention, and your husband asks whether there is more toast. Slowness is easier for people whose breakfasts are not also a management position. Still, you try. The egg is warm, the toast is crisp, the butter, limited though it is, does its best. There is a quiet satisfaction in ordinary food, even when it has been measured into obedience. That is one reason dieting is so emotionally tiring. It does not only remove food, it changes the relationship with food that remains. A boiled egg becomes sensible, toast becomes negotiable, butter becomes evidence, jam becomes suspicious, seconds become character. You are not simply eating breakfast, you are proving that you can be trusted near your own kitchen. At the table, other plates may be fuller. A child may leave half a slice of buttered toast behind, glistening in a way that feels deeply inconsiderate. You look at it while clearing the dish. It is too small to wrap, too large to ignore, and too perfectly buttered to belong in the trash. This is the sort of moment no reducing menu mentions. Menus are written in clean lines. Real kitchens contain leftovers with persuasive edges. Perhaps you eat it quickly while standing at the sink. Perhaps you tear off only the crisp corner. Perhaps you throw it away and feel virtuous for 3 seconds before feeling wasteful. The old lessons about not wasting food are strong. So are the new lessons about watching your figure. They meet over a child's leftover toast, which is not where anyone expected a moral struggle to occur. It would be easier if the toast were large enough to be called breakfast, or small enough to be called nothing. Instead, it sits in the middle, shining with butter and asking to be dealt with. You finish your own breakfast and rinse the plate. The yolk has left a small yellow mark. Toast crumbs scatter near the stove. Butter goes back into the refrigerator, still mostly innocent by law. The morning moves on. Beds, floors, laundry, shopping and lunch will all arrive, each asking the body to work while the mind remembers the scale. The egg and toast may hold you for a while. They may not. Either way, the little war has been fought with great quietness. No one else noticed. That is how many domestic battles worked. A knife, a pat of butter, a woman at the stove, and a breakfast that somehow became a referendum. You open the dresser drawer and see the girdle waiting, folded with the quiet authority of a garment that knows too much. In the 1950s, foundation garments could shape the body before the day had finished making its first demand. A smooth line mattered. Dresses expected it. Advertisements praised it. Department store mirrors seemed built to detect its absence. You lift the girdle and feel the firm elastic, hooks, panels, and promise of control. It is not food, but it belongs in the story of dieting because it offers another solution. If the body will not become the expected shape by Thursday, the drawer has equipment. The drawer smells faintly of sachet, cotton, powder, and stored fabric. Beside the girdle may be stockings rolled carefully, a brassiere with more architecture than a small porch, a slip, gloves for better occasions, and the quiet evidence of a world that expects women to prepare themselves before they are seen. The girdle does not look gentle. It looks practical, determined, and slightly offended by softness. You hold it up and give it the private look. Women give clothing that has both helped and betrayed them. Foundation garments were not new in the 1950s, but the decade loved a shaped figure. The fashionable body was often arranged into a small waist, full bust, smooth hips, and controlled line beneath fitted dresses, pencil skirts, shirtwaists, and evening clothes. Some women liked the support. Some felt dressed only when properly held together. Some wore girdles because their clothes were cut for that outline, and going without could feel less like comfort and more like arriving at the grocery store without shoes. But comfort was not always the central promise. Control was. The girdle could smooth what diet had not changed, compress what childbirth had rearranged, and persuade fabric to fall in a more approved direction. You step into it carefully, perhaps holding the edge, while balancing on one foot and thinking that dignity is easiest for people already seated. The elastic resists. The hooks require patience. The seams press into skin. If stockings are attached, there are garters to manage, little clips that seem designed by someone who enjoyed making mornings longer. You tug and smooth and adjust until the garment settles into place with the firm conviction that breathing is important but not always urgent. The room is quiet except for the rustle of fabric and the small sounds of effort. This is not the glamorous part shown in advertisements. In advertisements, foundation garments appear on smiling women with tidy hair, raised arms, and no sign of having wrestled elastic before breakfast. The drawings and photographs often promise sleekness, confidence, modern materials, and a figure restored to order. They do not show the bend, pull, twist, fasten, stand, sigh routine that may happen in front of a bedroom mirror while someone knocks on the door asking where the clean shirts are. The girdle occupies a strange place between clothing, beauty tool, and social agreement. It does not ask whether you are hungry. It does not care whether you are dieting. It simply says, for today, the silhouette can be managed from the outside. That is why it belongs here. Dieting asks the body to change slowly. The girdle offers results before lunch, provided lunch is not too ambitious and you do not need to sit down with enthusiasm. It creates a smooth line under the dress, which may make you feel composed. You may know women who call it ordinary, useful, and even comforting, and women who admit that by evening they feel like parcels tied for mailing. Both opinions can live in the same dresser. The point is not that every woman hated it. The point is that the expected shape often needed help, and the help had seams. It may also remind you all day that composition has pressure points, especially whenever a chair becomes involved. When you bend to pick up a toy, the garment tightens. When you sit at the table, it makes itself known. When you climb stairs, it announces that the stairs were perhaps unnecessary. Yet the mirror may approve. The dress may hang better. The waist may look neater. A woman who has been told that neatness is proof of character can feel a real comfort in that, especially before leaving the privacy of the bedroom. That is the difficult part. These objects were not only punishments. They could bring confidence, beauty, a sense of finish, and the pleasure of wearing clothes as they were meant to be worn. Many women chose them with care. Many also cursed them quietly while bending over. History usually allows both. You smooth the front one more time and look at yourself in the mirror. The figure is tidier now, more in line with what the dress expects. The body underneath is still yours, warm, breathing, living, and possibly hoping for breakfast. The drawer remains open behind you, innocent as furniture. You close it with your hip because your hands are busy adjusting the edge. Downstairs, the day waits with coffee, children, errands, and a lunch menu that will not consider the engineering already taking place under your clothes. The girdle has not reduced you. It has simply negotiated with the evidence. You stand before the bedroom mirror and pull the dress zipper upward with the care of someone handling a delicate household machine. The fabric catches for a moment at the waist, and suddenly the morning becomes less about clothing and more about character. Many 1950s dresses asked for a narrow middle, a lifted bust, and a smooth shape that suggested nothing inside the body had ever eaten standing up. The zipper is not cruel. It is only honest in a way that feels unnecessary. You hold your breath, straighten your back, and give the dress one more chance to behave like a friend. The mirror is tall enough to show the problem and not quite kind enough to soften it. Morning light comes through the curtains and lands on the bedspread, the rug, the little chair with yesterday's stockings over the back, and the dress you hoped would be simple. It is a good dress, perhaps a shirtwaist dress for errands, a fitted day dress for company, or a neat skirt and blouse that should make you look capable without looking as if you have tried too hard. The fabric may be cotton, rayon, wool, or a blend that promised easy care in the advertisement and now requires your full cooperation. You pull the zipper again. It moves a little, then pauses in the place where breakfast, babies, laundry, and ordinary human life have all held a meeting. You are not imagining the pressure. Clothing in the 1950s often carried the preferred shape of the decade right inside its seams. The full skirt could be generous, but the waist was expected to be defined. The pencil skirt could be smart, but it asked the hips to behave with professional discipline. The bodice might be fitted, the belt might be small. The whole outfit worked best when the body beneath it agreed to the plan. You turn sideways, smooth the fabric, and decide whether the trouble is the dress, the body, the undergarments, or the fact that a person should not be asked to form an opinion on all three before coffee. A dress zipper can become a private social event. No neighbour is present, no doctor is present, no magazine editor is present. Yet they somehow all fit into the room. The advice you have read, the remark someone made, the dress size printed inside the seam, the store mirror, the wedding photograph, the memory of how this fit last spring, all of it gathers quietly while the zipper waits. It is amazing how many people can attend a moment that appears to involve one woman and a piece of metal. If you have had children, the dress may remind you that bodies do not return to the past like laundry folded into a drawer. If money is tight, the dress cannot simply be replaced. If you are expected at church, school, a luncheon, or the grocery store, the dress must work because the day has no patience for personal reflection. You tug gently. A hard tug might break it, and a broken zipper is not only a clothing problem, it is a small household emergency with no moral lesson except that fabric has limits. There may be a safety pin nearby, because safety pins are the quiet emergency staff of domestic life. You consider it, then try again. The zipper moves upward with a sound so small that it should not feel like a national victory. There, closed. You exhale carefully, not all the way, but enough to remain alive. Now comes the second test, which is whether you can sit. You bend slightly, testing the waist. The dress answers. It will allow sitting, but not joyfully. This is where reducing and clothing meet. A bathroom scale gives a number. A calorie chart gives a plan. A dress gives a verdict in fabric. Sometimes it is kinder than expected. Sometimes it is not. The strange thing is that the dress may be beautiful. You may like its color, its collar, the way the skirt moves, the way it makes you feel put together. Clothes can bring real pleasure. They can help a woman feel ready for the world. But when the culture ties appearance so tightly to worth, even a pretty dress can become a test you have to pass before leaving the bedroom. You fasten the belt. The buckle sits at the waist like punctuation. You smooth the front again, then the side, then the back. Though unless you have a second mirror or unusual faith, the back remains partly a rumour. Perhaps the dress will relax as the day goes on. Perhaps you will. Perhaps neither. Downstairs, toast crumbs are already forming. Children are beginning to require answers, and the clock is moving with the selfish confidence of an object that does not need a zipper. You take one more look. You may smooth the skirt even though the skirt is not the problem. You may blame the wash, the dry cleaner, the season, or the mysterious behaviour of fabric when left alone in closets. Hope is resourceful before noon. The dress is closed. The face is calm. The body has been translated into the shape the morning expects. You open the bedroom door and step out carefully, because the day is long, and the zipper has already expressed its reservations. You carry a laundry basket through the hall and notice, not for the first time, that the house has been quietly running a fitness program without asking permission. Beds are made, floors are swept, rugs are shaken, groceries are carried, children are lifted, steps are climbed, and windows are opened with enough effort to count for something. Yet much of this labour is not called exercise because it happens in an apron and produces no applause. Magazines may recommend bending, stretching, or light calisthenics, but the ordinary house already contains a full routine. It is simply disguised as chores, which is convenient for everyone except the person doing them. The basket presses against your hip as you move down the hallway. It smells of soap, damp cotton, yesterday's socks, and the faint mystery of children's pockets. You set it down, then pick it up again because the laundry has not yet learned to travel alone. The morning is full of motion. You bend over beds, tuck corners, smooth sheets, shake crumbs from blankets, reach under furniture for lost shoes, carry dishes, wipe counters, lift a small child, lower the child, lift the child again, because the first lift was apparently not the correct lift, and climb the stairs with the patience of someone training for an event no one will name. If a magazine suggests exercise, it may show a woman in neat clothes doing graceful movements beside a chair, a little side bend, a toe touch, a stretch for posture, perhaps a plan to keep the waist slim and the figure youthful. These movements are tidy on the page. They do not include scrubbing the bathtub ring, hauling wet sheets, dragging a vacuum cleaner, or carrying groceries in paper bags while trying to keep eggs safe and dignity visible. But housework can be heavy. Before lightweight modern tools became common, and even after many electric helpers arrived, the labour could still tire the body deeply. A washing machine may wash, but it does not gather, sort, lift, hang, fold, or put away clothes. A vacuum may clean the rug, but someone must push it, pull it, move chairs and discover what the children have stored beneath the sofa. A refrigerator may preserve food, but it does not plan dinner, carry milk, trim leftovers, or explain why there is no cake on a Tuesday. The home is full of labour-saving devices that save labour in one place and quietly raise standards in another. Since the machine can help, the house is expected to be cleaner. Since the cleaner can work, the floor should shine. Since food keeps longer, meals can be planned better. Since modern life is convenient, no one should look tired. This is an impressive trick. It is almost athletic in its unfairness. You bend to pick up clothes from the floor and feel the waistband of the dress or girdle remind you that the body is already under management. The reducing advice tells you to move more, but it rarely praises the movement you are already doing. That is because exercise has a different sound when it belongs to leisure. A woman doing calisthenics to keep trim is improving herself. A woman carrying laundry is only doing what has to be done. The muscles cannot tell the difference. Your arms know the weight of wet towels. Your back knows the angle of making beds. Your knees know the kitchen floor. Your hands know the roughness of scrub brushes, clothespins, soap, and hot water. By late morning, the body has performed a whole series of bends, reaches, lifts, twists, and steps. If counted honestly, the house would owe you a certificate. Instead, it offers more dust. Not every woman experienced housework the same way. Money changed the tools, the space, and sometimes the help available. A woman in a small apartment worked differently from one in a suburban house. A woman doing paid work as well as housework carried another schedule entirely. Some families had modern machines. Others stretched older equipment. Some women hired help, while other women, often women of colour or working-class women, were the help in someone else's home before returning to their own. The cheerful image of housework as light, natural, feminine activity hides a great deal of class and race. It also hides sweat. You carry the basket to the line, the laundry room, or the bedroom. The weight shifts in your arms. A shirt falls over the edge, making a bid for freedom. You pause, catch it, and keep going. If anyone asks whether you have been active today, you may look at the basket, the stairs, the beds, and the kitchen floor with the calm expression of a woman protecting several witnesses. The body working through the house is not lazy. It is not delicate. It is not naturally preserved by modest meals and polite posture. It is active because life demands it. Yet the culture still asks whether you are exercising enough, as if the stairs have not already offered their opinion. By noon, you may have burned through breakfast, coffee, patience, and part of your hairstyle. The basket is empty for perhaps 4 minutes before someone creates more laundry. You stand there breathing softly and realize that the house has indeed kept you moving. It simply forgot to call it fitness. You find a calorie chart tucked into a drawer near the recipe cards, looking tidy, official, and mildly disappointed in everyone. It lists foods in neat columns, turning breakfast, lunch, dinner, and small moments of comfort into numbers that can be added, feared, and remembered later. Calorie counting was not new, but by the 1950s it had settled deeply into popular reducing advice, where food became both nourishment and arithmetic. You look from the chart to the recipe box, where cakes, pies, casseroles, and creamy salads wait in the handwriting of mothers, neighbours, and women who believed a proper meal should not look like an apology. The drawer itself is crowded with household knowledge, recipe cards softened at the corners, a pencil with bite marks, a grocery list from last week, coupons you meant to use before they quietly expired, perhaps a small booklet from a flour company, a church supper recipe, a clipping for a frosting that promised elegance in minutes, and the calorie chart folded into the middle like a stricter relative. It feels out of place and perfectly at home. The recipe box tells you how to feed people. The chart tells you how to be careful while doing it. Between them sits much of the 1950s kitchen. You unfold the chart and smooth it flat on the table. The paper may be thin, the print small, the categories neat enough to suggest that hunger has agreed to be organised. Bread, butter, eggs, milk, meat, potatoes, fruit, cake, pie. Each food has a number beside it, and the number has a way of changing the food. A slice of bread becomes less like bread and more like a little entry in a ledger. A pat of butter becomes an event. A cookie becomes something that must now explain itself in figures. Calorie counting had been part of reducing culture since the early 20th century, and by the 1950s it appeared in books, magazines, pamphlets, medical advice, and conversations between women trying to make sense of weight, appetite, and clothes. Counting could feel useful. It gave structure. It made the vague pressure to eat less into a system. It promised that the body could be managed if the numbers were obeyed. There is comfort in a system, especially when the system fits on paper and does not talk back, but the system also asks for attention. You must know portions. You must remember what you ate. You must decide whether the spoonful from the pan counts, whether the child's leftover toast counts, whether tasting the gravy counts, whether breaking off the cracked edge of a cookie counts if the cookie was already damaged. Numbers have a way of becoming less friendly once real kitchens are involved. You glance toward the recipe box. Inside are dishes meant for families, guests, holidays, grief, congratulations, church tables, school events, and ordinary Thursdays that need help. Meatloaf with crackers, tuna casserole, potato salad, chocolate cake, jellied salads that seemed, for reasons known to the decade, to require both colour and suspense. These recipes are not just food. They are duty, memory, hospitality, thrift, comfort, and the quiet art of making people feel cared for. A calorie chart does not fully know what to do with that. It can count the mayonnaise, but not the reason someone made the salad. It can count the cake, but not the birthday. It can count the gravy, but not the cold evening when gravy made everything feel warmer. It can count the potatoes, but not the relief of feeding everyone cheaply and well. That is where the arithmetic becomes too small for the room. Still, you use it because the pressure is real. Perhaps a dress is tight. Perhaps a doctor has advised reducing. Perhaps a magazine has promised a simpler plan. Perhaps a friend mentioned numbers over coffee. You may write them down in a notebook. You may keep them in your head. You may do very well until dinner, when the family meal arrives with bread, gravy, and the full emotional force of butter. Counting calories while cooking for others is a special form of household multitasking. You are seasoning the food while subtracting yourself from it. You are planning nourishment and restraint at the same table. The chart has no idea how difficult it is to serve mashed potatoes with a light hand when you also made them. It has certainly never smelled onions browning in a pan while recommending lettuce. You fold the paper again, not angrily but not tenderly either. It may help, it may bother you, it may do both. Like many tools of reducing culture, it gives you a way to feel in control, while also reminding you that control is expected. The recipe box remains beside it, full of generous instructions. Add cream, fold in eggs, bake until golden, serve warm. The calorie chart offers a different language: measure, limit, avoid, record. Together they create a very busy drawer. You tuck the chart back in, close the drawer, and stand for a moment with your hand on the handle. Dinner will still have to happen. The cake recipe will not disappear. The numbers will not cook. In the end, the drawer contains two kinds of wisdom: how to feed everyone and how to feel guilty while reading about it. You place a small plate on the table and arrange lunch with the care of someone preparing evidence. Cottage cheese sits beside lettuce. A tomato slice leans politely nearby. Perhaps there is a boiled egg, a few crackers, or a small serving of tuna that has been asked not to involve too much mayonnaise. Reducing menus often look clean, pale, and sensible, which is helpful if the goal is to feel watched by lunch. The food is not bad, it may even be refreshing, but it arrives with an attitude, and it does not smell like the grilled cheese sandwich you just made for someone else. The kitchen has entered the middle of the day. Morning dishes are drying. The coffee pot has gone quiet. Sunlight falls across the table, stronger now, showing crumbs you were sure had been removed. Lunch should be a pause, but in a house it often becomes another little service. A child may need soup. A husband may be away at work with sandwiches wrapped in wax paper. You may be at home facing your own plate, which looks as though it has been arranged by a committee devoted to restraint. The lettuce is crisp if you are lucky. The tomato is bright and slightly watery. The cottage cheese is cool, white and calm in a way that suggests it has never worried about anything. There may be canned fruit, perhaps pear or peach, placed beside it because colour helps morale. A cracker adds sound, though not much courage. This is the reducing lunch, and it has a long history of trying to look cheerful. Women's magazines and diet booklets often presented plates like this as easy, attractive, and modern. A diet lunch could be described as light, refreshing, dainty, or sensible. These are all words that sound better before noon. By noon, after beds, dishes, shopping lists, laundry, errands, and other people's breakfasts, the body may have developed opinions. Still, the plate has its appeal. It is neat. It is quick. It does not require a sink full of pans. It fits the idea of a woman who is taking herself in hand without making a fuss. That phrase appears often in spirit, if not always in print. Do not make a fuss. Reduce quietly. Eat carefully. Stay pleasant. Do not turn your hunger into a family announcement. You sit down, perhaps for a moment, perhaps for as long as the household allows. The chair creaks softly. The fork feels cool in your hand. You take a bite of lettuce and cottage cheese. It is fresh enough. It is not supper. That is the problem with lunch under supervision. It may meet the rules without meeting the mood. Nearby, there may be bread, butter, soup, leftover meat, or a slice of cake under a cover. They are not shouting. They are simply present, which is sometimes worse. A housewife trying to reduce does not usually live in an empty room with only approved foods. She lives in a kitchen, which is where food waits for children, husbands, guests, emergencies, school lunches, coffee visits, and the general continuation of civilization. The refrigerator contains leftovers, The pantry contains crackers, tins, perhaps cookies if the family is fortunate. The bread box is a daily test. The reducing plate sits in the middle of all this, tidy and brave, like a small lifeboat in a sea of sandwich possibilities. You may tell yourself that lunch is enough. Sometimes it is. A light meal can feel pleasant, especially on a warm day, especially if you chose it yourself. Not every woman hated these foods. Some liked them. Some found structure helpful. Some enjoyed feeling lighter, neater, more in control. History should allow women their choices, but it should also notice the pressure surrounding those choices. When every magazine praises slenderness, when clothing expects a certain line, when husbands, doctors, friends, and saleswomen all seem to have opinions, the plate is no longer only a plate. It becomes a small public performance held in private. You choose slowly. You consider adding more salt. You decide against too much because even seasoning seems to be watching. The tomato slips on the lettuce. The cottage cheese remains where it is, with the steady confidence of a food that knows it has been trusted by editors. A child may wander in and ask what you are eating. You say lunch. The child studies the plate with deep suspicion, then asks for a sandwich. This is fair. Children have not yet learned to pretend that lettuce is an event. You make the sandwich. Peanut butter, jam, cheese, or meat if there is enough. The smell rises warm and immediate from the bread. You cut it in halves. One half breaks a little at the edge. The old problem returns. Waste or taste. Discipline or tidying. You put the child's plate down and return to your own. The reducing lunch waits patiently, having lost none of its attitude. By the time you finish, you may feel virtuous, hungry, refreshed, annoyed, or some mixture of all four. You carry the plate to the sink. It rinses clean very easily, which is one advantage of a meal that never fully committed itself. Outside, the afternoon is beginning. Inside, the grilled cheese smell is still in the air, enjoying a popularity lettuce can only dream of. You spoon cottage cheese onto a plate and watch it settle into a soft mound of dietary seriousness. Few foods in the reducing world carry themselves with such calm confidence while inspiring so little romance. In women's magazines, lunch counters, and diet plates, cottage cheese often appears as a trusted friend to the woman watching her figure. It is high in protein, plain, respectable, and difficult to accuse of leading anyone astray. You add fruit, lettuce, or a tomato because the plate needs colour and morale. The result looks virtuous, which is not the same as satisfying, but history has never promised perfect fairness. The plate sits in front of you, with the pale certainty of something that has been recommended by people in print. It does not steam. It does not sizzle. It does not fill the room with the warm smell of onions, toast, or pie. It simply waits, cool and lumpy, with an air of having nothing to apologise for. That may be its greatest strength. Cottage cheese became one of those foods that seemed to belong naturally to dieting because it looked innocent. It was not fried. It was not rich. It did not arrive under gravy or hide beneath pastry. It looked clean, useful, and almost medical without being actual medicine, which made it useful to the reducing imagination. You lift the spoon and take a bite. The texture is soft, wet, and mild. If it is good cottage cheese, it has a fresh dairy taste. If it is less good, it has the personality of a damp handshake. Either way, the magazines are certain it is helping. They place it beside pineapple, peaches, pears, tomato slices, lettuce leaves, or a few crackers, as though colour alone can turn restraint into luncheon. Sometimes it works. A chilled plate on a warm day can feel pleasant. A little fruit can make the meal bright. A tomato can bring acidity in the sense that the garden has at least been consulted. But the plate also carries a message. It says you are being careful. It says you are choosing the kind of food that asks nothing dangerous of the waste. It says appetite has been invited, but only to sit politely near the lettuce. The strange thing is that cottage cheese can be perfectly useful food and still become funny under pressure. A food does not need to be bad to be overburdened. In the 1950s, when popular advice often linked slimness with charm, discipline, and feminine success, cottage cheese was asked to do a great deal. It was asked to be lunch, proof, comfort, and self-control all at once. That is a large assignment for dairy. You may have seen it on diet plates at department store restaurants, in women's magazines, at lunch counters, or on the table of a friend who has announced she is reducing with the careful cheer of someone entering negotiations. The plate may look modern and neat. It may also look like it was arranged by a person trying not to think about toasted cheese. You eat slowly. The spoon makes a small sound against the plate. The kitchen is quiet except for the refrigerator hum and a chair leg tapping when a child shifts nearby. If you are serving family lunch too, there may be sandwiches, soup, or leftovers on another plate. Their smells are warmer. Their textures are kinder. Your plate remains cool, orderly, and committed to its own reputation. It is important to be fair. Not every woman experienced cottage cheese as punishment. Some liked it. Some chose it because it was quick, affordable, and easy. Some used it as part of a sensible meal without turning lunch into a moral examination. But the culture around the food could make even an ordinary choice feel supervised. A scoop of cottage cheese became more than lunch when it appeared in a column promising a smaller waist by summer. It became part of the polite training of appetite. You add pepper. This helps. You add a little salt. This helps more. You consider whether a cracker counts as reasonable or rebellious. The cracker sits nearby, crisp and square, pretending not to know its own appeal. There may be a slice of canned peach on the side, bright and sweet enough to make the plate feel less like a meeting. The peach is doing emotional labour. You respect it. There is also something very mid-century in the tidy arrangement. Pale dairy, green lettuce, orange fruit, perhaps a wedge of tomato, all placed neatly so the meal looks designed rather than small. Presentation matters. A small meal can feel less disappointing when it looks as though someone planned it with care. Women often learn to make little things seem generous through plates, garnish, shape, timing, and tone of voice. You sit, chew, swallow, and listen to the day moving around you. Soon there will be errands, dishes, a phone call, perhaps a neighbour, perhaps a child asking for food immediately after refusing food. The cottage cheese will not carry the afternoon by itself, but it has made its case. When the plate is empty, it leaves almost nothing behind. No crumbs worth sweeping, no pan to scrub. No rich smell in the kitchen. It vanishes cleanly, which is part of its charm and part of its problem. You rinse the plate and watch the last white curds slide away. Lunch has behaved beautifully. Whether lunch has comforted anyone remains under review. You sit at a luncheon table with other women, each plate arranged with lettuce, fruit, chicken salad, or something moulded and trembling under a glossy surface. Conversation stays light. Compliments move gently around the table. Someone praises the dressing. Someone else mentions a reducing plan in the soft voice people use for private things, said publicly. Nobody openly studies what anyone else eats, because that would be rude. Everyone notices anyway. In the 1950s, women's social meals could offer friendship, laughter, and relief, but they also carried small measurements. The forks remain polite. The room does not. The table is set with care, perhaps in a dining room that smells faintly of coffee, waxed wood, face powder, and chilled salad. There are cloth napkins or good paper ones, small plates, bright glassware, a dish of pickles, a bowl of rolls, and the quiet thrill of being somewhere that is not your own sink. A luncheon can be a lovely thing. It gives women a chance to sit together, exchange news, laugh about children, compare prices, pass along recipes, and speak to another adult before evening. That should not be dismissed. Companionship matters, especially in houses where the radio sometimes does more talking than anyone else. Still, the social table has its rules. You know them without reading them. Praise the hostess. Do not arrive starving. Do not look too eager for seconds. Do not refuse everything so dramatically that others feel judged. Do not take so much dessert that someone remembers it in October. It is a delicate balance, and the fork is only one of the instruments. A plate of chicken salad may be rich with mayonnaise, celery, and chopped meat, then placed neatly on lettuce to give the whole arrangement moral cover. A moulded salad may contain fruit, vegetables, cottage cheese, gelatin, or decisions made in a very confident kitchen. Some dishes shimmer, some wobble. Some seem to have survived an experiment and been promoted to lunch. In the world of women's entertaining, these foods could show skill, thrift, modernity, and care. They were pretty, chilled, convenient, and often made ahead, which allowed the hostess to appear calm when guests arrived. Calmness is always admired by people not standing near the refrigerator at 10 in the morning wondering if the mold will release. You take your place and place your napkin in your lap. Someone says the table looks lovely. Someone asks about the pattern of the dishes. Someone else says she is trying to be good this week, and the room understands the code. Being good does not mean truthfulness, kindness, or patience with children who hide crayons in vents. It means not eating too much bread. You smile. The bread basket passes. This is where etiquette and reducing become quietly complicated. A woman is expected to show appetite, but not too much. She should enjoy the food, but not seem uncontrolled. She should praise the cake, perhaps take a modest slice, and then speak as though she has no strong feelings about frosting. The conversation floats above the plates. Schools, husbands, new curtains, church plans, a sale at the department store, the doctor's advice, a neighbour who has lost weight, another neighbour who may have gained. No one says this cruelly, or at least not always. Often it is concern, curiosity, habit, and the ordinary social measuring that happens when a culture gives women too many reasons to compare themselves. You notice what others choose because others may notice you. This does not make anyone wicked. It makes everyone tired in a very well-dressed way. The hostess urges you to have more. You say perhaps a little. If you refuse completely, she may feel her food has failed. If you accept too much, you may feel your dress has taken notes. One woman says she could never eat another bite, though her eyes rest briefly on the cake. Another takes a small piece and explains that she skipped breakfast. Someone laughs. Someone says her husband likes a woman with a little shape, which is either kindness, warning, or conversation trying to survive. The room is warm. The coffee is poured. Cigarette smoke may drift near the window if anyone is smoking, curling above the table like punctuation. These gatherings can be generous and tender. Women may share real advice here. They may warn one another about a doctor, exchange childcare, help a sick neighbour, or admit quietly that they feel worn out. A luncheon is not only judgment, it can be a lifeline with napkins. But food sits at the centre of it, and food is never only food when women's bodies are being discussed everywhere else. You take another bite, slowly enough to seem composed, not so slowly that anyone asks if something is wrong. The moulded salad trembles when the table shifts. It has more freedom of movement than anyone expected. By the end, plates are cleared, cups refilled, and compliments offered once more. You may leave feeling warmer, connected, and also faintly aware of every bite you took. At the door, you thank the hostess and say everything was delicious. It was. That was never the issue. The issue is that lunch has somehow managed to become friendship, performance, nutrition, etiquette, and quiet watching, all while sitting on a lettuce leaf. You stand at the counter frosting a cake that smells like vanilla, sugar, and betrayal. The cake is for the family, or the church table, or a neighbour, or a child's birthday, which means it is your job to make it delicious and then behave as though you have no personal relationship with it. This is one of the quiet absurdities of mid-century domestic dieting. Women were often expected to cook generously while eating carefully. You smooth the frosting with a knife, trim a rough edge, and discover that the rough edge has become available. No one can serve a rough edge. Standards must be protected. The kitchen is warm from the oven. The window has misted slightly, and the room smells of flour, butter, sugar, vanilla, and the kind of hope that rises in a pan. On the counter, the cake cools on a rack, soft at the edges, golden at the top, perhaps made from scratch or from a boxed mix that promised modern ease and dependable results. Cake mixes were part of the great post-war romance with convenience. They saved time, offered consistency, and helped a woman produce dessert even when the day had already taken several unfair liberties. They also made the kitchen smell like celebration, which is a dangerous thing when you are trying to reduce. You spread the frosting in smooth, careful strokes. If it is chocolate, the scent is rich enough to make every diet menu in the drawer look foolish. If it is vanilla, it is pale, sweet, and innocent in the way only sugar can be when hiding in plain sight. The knife glides over the surface, leaving little ridges. You turn the plate, you fix one side, you add more where the cake shows through. This is not nibbling, this is craftsmanship. At least that is the argument currently being made by the part of your mind holding the knife. A proper cake matters. It may be for Sunday dinner, a school event, a sick neighbour, a family birthday, a coffee visit, or simply because a house that can offer cake feels a little more secure. In mid-century domestic life, baking was tied to hospitality, skill, affection, and the pleasant fiction that a woman could always produce something sweet at the correct moment. A cake said you cared. It said the home was functioning. It said guests were welcome and children were loved. It said nothing about the woman who made it standing beside the counter trying to decide whether frosting stuck to the knife counts as food. Reducing advice rarely knew what to do with bakers. It could tell you to avoid sweets, keep busy, and choose fruit. It could not easily explain how to bake a birthday cake, ice it evenly, slice it for everyone, wrap the leftovers, and remain a person with no interest in crumbs. You are surrounded by temptation you created with your own hands. This is a very specific form of betrayal. The family may drift in before the cake is ready. A child asks for a taste. You say not yet. Your husband may comment that it smells good. You say it is for later. You do not say that later is already causing problems. The cake sits there, beautiful and calm, wearing the frosting you gave it. It has no shame. You trim the uneven edge, because the cake must look nice. The trimmed bit rests on the counter. It is not a slice. It is not dessert. It is a flaw removed from public life. If eaten, it can be understood as quality control. Someone must confirm that the cake is not poisonous, dry, overbaked, underbaked, or emotionally disappointing. You take a small bite. It is good. This is upsetting, because bad cake would have solved several problems. You may take another crumb, partly to even the edge again. Cakes are very demanding about geometry. The humour of it is small, but the pressure is real. Women were often praised for feeding others well while also being told not to indulge. The ideal hostess made rich food and then displayed light appetite. The ideal mother baked for children and remained trim. The ideal wife knew her husband's favourite dessert but did not let dessert become too familiar. These expectations were not always spoken harshly. Often they were woven into compliments, advice, recipes, and photographs of smiling women holding pies they apparently did not plan to eat. You finish frosting the cake. It looks lovely. Perhaps you add coconut, nuts, candles, or a careful ring of decoration. The plate is carried to the sideboard or covered for later. The knife remains in your hand with a ribbon of frosting along the edge. This is the final test, and it is ridiculous because no one in history has ever improved a cake by wasting frosting. You scrape it into the bowl, maybe with the discipline of a serious woman. Or you taste it because you are alive and the bowl is right there. Either way, the world continues. The cake is ready. The family will enjoy it. Guests will compliment it. Someone may say you hardly ate any, as though this proves virtue. You wipe the counter, rinse the bowl, and sweep up crumbs. The room still smells sweet. The cake has done nothing wrong. It has only revealed the unfairness of being expected to make pleasure and then stand slightly apart from it. You serve dinner in the warm kitchen while the windows steam softly and the table fills with the evening's proof of care. Meat, potatoes, vegetables, bread, butter, perhaps a salad if the lettuce has survived the day. Your husband may need a hearty meal after work. The children need enough to grow. Guests need hospitality. You need to remain slender, pleasant, and apparently nourished by restraint. The plate becomes a small map of unequal expectation. You know which portion is yours before anyone says anything. A little less potato, a smaller slice, more salad. The family eats supper. You conduct negotiations with a serving spoon. The kitchen feels different at evening. The light outside lowers. The stove gives off heat. A pan ticks as it cools. The smell of meat, onions, vegetables, or gravy settles into the room and makes the whole day seem as if it has been moving toward this table. Dinner is not only food. In many 1950s homes, it is proof that the household has held together for another day. Children have returned from school. A husband has come home from work. The table has been set. The meal appears, and with it a quiet claim that order is still possible. You may have planned it from the pantry in the morning, adjusted it at the store, stretched it with potatoes, softened it with gravy, or made it look more generous through careful slicing. Now everyone sits down and the food must become both nourishment and performance. A man who has worked all day may expect a substantial plate, and in many homes that expectation is not treated as unreasonable. He has earned his supper, the culture says. The children are growing, so their hunger has official permission to be dramatic. A guest must be fed well enough to feel welcome. You, however, have a different set of instructions hovering over your chair. Eat enough to seem normal. Eat lightly enough to remain disciplined. Do not make a speech about reducing. Do not seem greedy. Do not seem joyless. Enjoy the meal you cooked, but not with alarming sincerity. This is a narrow path, and it runs directly through the mashed potatoes. You lift the serving spoon. A generous scoop for him. Smaller ones for the children, adjusted for age, appetite, and the strange fact that a child who claimed starvation 10 minutes ago may now object to peas. Your own plate comes last, perhaps by habit, perhaps because you are still watching what remains. The meat may be sliced thin for thrift. The vegetables may be canned, fresh or frozen depending on budget, place and season. You put a little more salad on your plate. Salad is safe, at least until dressing enters the room with its own ambitions. The bread basket passes, butter waits in its dish. The potatoes steam gently, smelling of warmth and comfort, and everything reducing menus try to discuss in a low voice. You take less than you want, or perhaps exactly what you want, and then feel watched by your own thoughts. The family may not notice. They are busy eating. That is the lonely part of portion control at a family table. The meal can be full of voices, requests, spilled milk, and someone refusing carrots with legal precision, yet your own calculation happens almost invisibly. You are present and slightly separate. You ask whether anyone wants more. Someone does. You rise, refill, sit again, cut your food, listen, remind a child to use a napkin, and take another bite. It tastes good because you made it taste good. That naturally creates the problem. Bad food would make discipline easier, but the family has already endured enough. Dinner carries long memories too. Women who lived through lean years may find it hard to serve lightly when a full plate once meant safety. Many were taught never to waste or let guests leave hungry. Then magazines and fashion tell you to keep slim. The result is a woman serving abundance while practicing restraint in the same motion. You may stretch the meat so everyone has enough, then take a smaller piece yourself and call it preference. You may skip seconds, not because you are full, but because the dress, the scale, or the luncheon conversation has followed you to the table. No one has to say a word. Culture is very capable of sitting down uninvited. Still, the meal can be warm. The children may laugh. Your husband may compliment the gravy. Someone may tell a small story from the day. The table may feel for a moment like the centre of the home in the best sense. That is why the pressure is so tangled. The same supper that carries care also carries rules. You finish slowly. You clear plates that still have scraps. A child's potato remains. A bit of meat is too small to save and too expensive to throw away without thought. The serving spoon rests in the dish, tired from diplomacy. Later, someone may say dinner was good, and you will be pleased because it matters. You will also notice that you ate less of it than anyone else. The family leaves the table fed. You stand with the plates and realize supper has done what it always does. It has filled everyone and measured you quietly. You are passing the bread when your husband makes a casual remark about a dress fitting tighter, or a neighbour looking slim, or how pretty you looked before the baby, and the whole table remains perfectly ordinary, except for the place where the sentence has landed. He may not mean harm. He may even think he is being helpful, which is one of the more dangerous household categories. In many marriages, a woman's appearance was treated as part of her duty to remain attractive, youthful, and pleasing. You smile because dinner is not the place for a speech. The potatoes sit quietly, having heard everything. The room continues. Forks move. A child asks for more bread. The clock ticks on the wall. Your husband reaches for his glass, perhaps unaware that his sentence has taken up more space than the serving bowl. That is the strange force of a casual comment. It can be small enough for the speaker to forget, and large enough for the listener to carry upstairs later. He may have said it with a laugh. He may have said it gently. He may have said it after seeing an advertisement, a movie star, a neighbour, or an old photograph of you in a dress that belonged to another season of your life. He may think he is admiring the old you, not criticising the current one. But the current you is sitting right there, managing dinner, children, dishes, and the quiet dignity of not throwing a roll. In the 1950s, marriage advice often told wives to remain attractive for their husbands. The words could sound affectionate, even reasonable. Keep yourself nice. Do not neglect your looks. Freshen your lipstick before he comes home. Watch your weight. A wife's appearance was often folded into the care of the household, as if the living room, dinner table, children, and female body all belonged to the same maintenance schedule. This does not mean every husband was unkind or every marriage was cold. Many men loved their wives deeply. Some praised them, desired them, supported them, and never made weight into a weapon. But the broader culture gave husbands, doctors, relatives, magazines, and even strangers more permission than they needed to comment on women's bodies. You pass the bread and feel that permission arrive in your own kitchen. The comment may be ordinary enough that objecting to it would make you seem sensitive. That is part of its power. If you answer sharply, the mood changes and you are blamed for changing it. If you laugh, the sentence passes but stays with you. If you say nothing, peace is kept at a small private cost. So you choose the answer most available to women trained in the art of domestic weather control. You smile. Perhaps you say, "I know," or "I have been meaning to be careful," or "I suppose I should skip dessert. Everyone keeps eating." The children may not understand the remark, though they understand tone better than adults hope. The potatoes steam. The butter softens. The bread basket sits between you like an object suddenly involved in negotiations. After childbirth, illness, stress, age, or ordinary life, bodies change. This is not a scandal. It is biology doing its work without consulting fashion editors. But mid-century ideals often asked women to return, restore, reduce, and smooth themselves as though life should leave no visible trace. A baby could rearrange your body, your sleep, your time, your appetite, your nerves, and your laundry, and the culture might still offer a girdle advertisement as if elastic had addressed the matter. You may remember the dress he mentioned. You may remember the photograph. You may even remember feeling beautiful in it. The memory can be tender and painful at once. It is possible to miss an old shape without wanting your current body treated like a household error. You look down at your plate. There is food left. A moment ago you were hungry. Now hunger has become complicated. Do you finish? Do you leave it? Do you take dessert later? Do you quietly change tomorrow's breakfast? The comment has done what reducing culture often does best. It has moved into your mind and begun rearranging the furniture. Your husband may ask for the salt. He may tell a story from work. He may have no idea that you are now remembering the scale, the dress zipper, the magazine page, the woman at luncheon who looks so slim in blue. This is not because men are monsters. It is because culture can make some people careless and others watchful. A remark about a woman's body does not land in an empty room. It lands on years of advice, jokes, warnings, dress sizes, mirrors, and the fear of letting oneself go, a phrase so gentle it almost hides its teeth. You rise to clear the plates. The sink waits with its usual lack of sympathy. In the kitchen, you scrape leftovers, wrap what can be saved, and think about tomorrow's lunch. Perhaps you will reduce more carefully. Perhaps you will eat the cake later in private, because sadness and frosting sometimes reach agreements. Perhaps you will simply feel tired and let the thought pass like steam. The comment may fade. It may not. Either way, dinner has changed shape. A plate of food has become a question, and a sentence dropped beside the potatoes has managed to weigh more than the potatoes themselves. You sit on the paper-covered examination table while the doctor glances at your chart and asks a few questions about appetite, nerves, fatigue, and whether you have been keeping busy. The office smells of antiseptic, paper, wool coats, and professional certainty. In the 1950s, some women seeking weight loss were offered medical help, including appetite-suppressing medicines, sometimes with too little attention to the pressure surrounding the request. The doctor may call it sensible, he may call it a little assistance. He may also miss the fact that you are tired, watched, overworked, and trying to fit into a culture with a tape measure where its sympathy should be. You sit with your hands folded in your lap, hearing the faint crackle of the paper beneath you each time you shift. The room is clean and serious. The blinds are half lowered, the light is flat, and everything seems designed to make a person speak quietly. There is a metal tray, a glass jar of cotton, a scale in the corner, perhaps a framed certificate on the wall, and a desk arranged with the calm belief that answers can be written on a pad. Your dress is neat. Your gloves may be in your handbag. Your shoes do not quite touch the floor. You have come here with a problem that sounds simple when spoken aloud. You want to lose weight. Or perhaps you are tired. Or perhaps you are hungry at the wrong times, nervous at the wrong times, and expected to remain cheerful at all times, which is an ambitious schedule for any human body. The doctor listens, or appears to listen, while making notes. Some doctors were kind, careful, and serious about helping their patients. Others could be brisk, patronizing, or far too willing to treat women's distress as a small mechanical fault in need of adjustment. The culture around medicine often gave male doctors great authority over women's bodies, moods, appetites, sleep, and nerves. A woman might describe exhaustion, worry, or a sense of failure, and the answer might arrive as advice to rest, reduce, calm down, keep busy, or take something. These answers were not always useless. Sometimes they helped, but they could also make the real problem disappear behind the prescription. If you are trying to reduce, the doctor may weigh you. The scale here is taller and more official than the one at home, which gives it the unpleasant dignity of a courtroom witness. Your weight is recorded. The number becomes part of the chart, where it looks even more final than it did on the bathroom tile. He may ask what you eat, whether you snack, whether you have had children, whether you take exercise, whether you are nervous. You answer carefully because the room has taught you to be a good patient. You do not want to sound vain. You do not want to sound weak. You do not want to say that your husband's comment landed hard, or that the dress zipper has become a daily negotiation, or that every magazine near the grocery checkout seems personally invested in your waistline. Instead, you say you would like a little help. In the 1950s, appetite-suppressing drugs, including amphetamine-based medicines, were used by some doctors for weight loss. They could reduce appetite and increase energy, which may sound appealing if the day expects housework, childcare, errands, cooking, and a pleasant face on very little breakfast. But they also carried risks, especially when used casually or for long periods. The trouble is that risk can look small when it arrives in a neat bottle with a printed label and a doctor's approval. The doctor may describe the medicine as temporary. He may tell you to eat sensibly. He may recommend more exercise, as if the laundry basket has been lounging all morning. He may mention willpower in a way that suggests willpower lives in the same drawer as clean stockings and can be taken out when needed. You nod. It is easier to nod than to explain that your day is not a single problem but a string of small ones tied together with apron strings. You want to be healthier, perhaps. You want to fit the dress, perhaps. You want to feel in control again, perhaps most of all. Appetite is not only hunger in this room. It is a symptom, a character trait, a problem to be corrected, and occasionally an inconvenience to other people's ideas of beauty. The exam ends. The paper beneath you is wrinkled now, having shared the appointment without offering comfort. You step down, smooth your dress, and take the paper slip, or bottle or instructions. The nurse may smile as she hands back your coat, not unkindly, simply as part of the office routine. Outside the room, another woman waits with her own private worry folded into her handbag. You return to your gloves, your list, your life. The doctor has given you something that may help. He has not given you more sleep, more time, fewer comments, a kinder mirror, or a culture less interested in measuring you. Still, you tuck the answer away because it is an answer, and answers are hard to refuse when they come with a signature. The office door closes behind you. The chart remains inside, holding the number with great confidence and no understanding of supper. You place the small pill bottle into your handbag beside a compact, handkerchief, coins, and the grocery list, where it clicks softly against the ordinary tools of the day. It looks discreet. That is part of its power. Diet pills, stimulants, tranquilizers, and other prescriptions belong to a wider mid-century world where women's discomfort was often managed quietly instead of understood fully. A bottle could promise control, energy, calm, or less hunger. It could also carry risk and silence. You close the handbag clasp and feel the strange comfort of having help, even when the help has not asked what the day feels like. The handbag is already a small household office. Inside are keys, perhaps a lipstick, a mirror, a few coins folded in a purse, a tissue, a grocery list, coupons, a child's lost button, and now this bottle with its neat label and little tablets waiting in the dark. It is private, but not hidden exactly. It sits with the other small objects that help you pass through public life looking prepared. It belongs to the soft category of things women carry because life might require repair before lunch. A compact repairs shine. Lipstick repairs the face. A handkerchief repairs tears, noses, and minor public disorder. The pill bottle repairs appetite or nerves or fatigue, depending on what was written and what was understood. That is a lot of trust to place in something small enough to vanish beneath a receipt. In the 1950s, prescription medicine was becoming part of ordinary middle-class life in new ways. Doctors had more tools. Advertisements and articles often spoke with confidence about modern science. Pills could seem clean, efficient, private, and respectable. They fit the age of appliances, packaged foods, automatic washers, and cheerful promises that modern life had become easier. If the washing machine could help with laundry, perhaps a pill could help with appetite. If the vacuum cleaner could manage dust, perhaps medicine could manage nerves. The comparison is unfair to both women and vacuum cleaners, but the decade did like a tidy solution. You may not think of the bottle as dramatic. That is partly because it has been given to you in such a calm and respectable way. It may simply sit in your handbag as practical assistance, a way to reduce without feeling hungry all day, a way to keep up with work, a way to feel that someone has taken your worry seriously, even if only by making it smaller and rounder. The tablets may represent hope. They may also represent how little space women were sometimes given to describe the life around the symptom. If you say you are eating too much, the answer may focus on appetite. If you say you are tired, the answer may focus on energy. If you say you are nervous, the answer may focus on calm. But appetite, tiredness, and nerves can be messages from a life that is asking too much. The bottle cannot fold laundry, stop a careless comment, make childcare less lonely, or change the fact that your body is being watched by clothes, magazines, mirrors, and dinner plates. It can only do what chemistry does, which may be powerful and still not complete. You walk down the street or sit on the bus with the handbag resting against your side. The bottle clicks again when the bag shifts. Nobody else hears it. That is another part of the story. Mid-century women's use of pills often remained quiet, ordinary, and easy to miss. A neighbour might know. A friend might mention something at the beauty salon. A doctor might refill a prescription without asking enough questions. The language stayed gentle. A little something. A helper. A tablet. Something for your nerves. Something to take the edge off. Something to reduce. The softness of the words made the arrangement feel safer than it sometimes was. Appetite suppressants and stimulants could bring side effects. Sedatives and tranquilizers could create other problems. But in a culture that asked women to function smoothly, the pressure to accept smoothness in pill form was real. You may open the handbag later in the kitchen, perhaps while the coffee cools and lunch waits. The bottle is there among the normal things, almost domestic. It does not look like rebellion. It looks like compliance made portable. You take it if instructed, or you hesitate, or you forget, or you decide today is the day you will manage without it. Then change your mind when the cake, the scale, the children, and your own tired body begin holding a conference. There is no need to turn the bottle into a villain. Sometimes medicine helps people, sometimes it is necessary, sometimes it brings relief where relief was badly needed. The sadness is not that help existed. The sadness is that help often arrived before anyone asked what made a woman need so much help to keep smiling. You close the handbag again. The clasp snaps shut with a small final sound. The day continues around you, ordinary as wallpaper. Dinner still needs planning. The telephone may ring. Someone may ask where the clean towels are, as if towels choose their own destiny. Somewhere inside the bag, the bottle waits quietly, offering control in a world that has already asked too much of it. You stand near the open kitchen window with a cigarette between your fingers while smoke slips into the afternoon light. The house is briefly quiet. The ashtray waits on the sill, the coffee cup cools nearby, and the radio murmurs from another room. Cigarettes were woven deeply into mid-century life, sold with glamour, calm, sociability, and sometimes the suggestion that they could help steady appetite or nerves. You are not thinking about warnings. Those voices are not yet loud enough in this kitchen. You are thinking about a pause, a hand occupied, a mouth distracted, and a moment in which hunger can be asked to wait. The window is cracked open just enough to let the smoke drift outward, and the air move softly against the curtains. Outside, perhaps a lawnmower starts, a dog barks, a car passes slowly, or a neighbour's screen door shuts with a small clap. Inside, The sink holds a few dishes, the counter has crumbs, and the afternoon has entered that strange hollow hour when lunch is gone, dinner is not ready, and the body begins making suggestions. You lift the cigarette and inhale. The paper is warm between your fingers, and the first pull gives the afternoon a small point of focus. The gesture feels familiar, almost elegant, because the culture has taught it to look that way. Movie stars smoke, husbands smoke, doctors in advertisements have smoked, women in evening gowns smoke, women at kitchen tables smoke. Cigarettes appear in magazines, on television, in diners, in offices, at parties, in salons, in cars, and beside coffee cups everywhere. The smell belongs to the period so strongly that it seems to have settled into the curtains of memory. For many people in the 1950s, smoking is not a shocking habit. It is a social rhythm, a pause, a prop, a small companion for the hand. You may smoke because you enjoy it. You may smoke because friends do. You may smoke because the cigarette gives you something adult that belongs only to you for 3 quiet minutes. And, like many women, you may have absorbed the idea that smoking can help with appetite or weight. The idea was not invented in your kitchen. Earlier cigarette advertising had openly played with the link between smoking and slenderness, and the association lingered in popular thinking. A cigarette can make the mouth busy. It can delay a snack. It can stand between you and the pantry when the pantry begins sounding reasonable. It is not nourishment. It is postponement with ash. The smoke curls upward, blue and thin in the light. You tap ash into the tray. Perhaps the tray is glass, perhaps a little ceramic dish, perhaps something given away with a brand name that no one thinks to hide because branding has not yet learned to whisper. The coffee beside you is lukewarm. Coffee and cigarettes make a small meal only if one has a generous imagination and a very patient stomach. Still, they become a common pair in the world of reducing. Drink coffee, smoke, keep busy. Do not think about bread. The advice may not be written exactly that way in every column, but many women understood the pattern. Appetite could be distracted, the body could be delayed, the afternoon could be crossed by ritual instead of food. Of course, the health risks of smoking were becoming clearer in medical research, but public understanding and warning labels had not yet entered daily life with the force they would later have. In this kitchen, the cigarette does not feel like a future warning. It feels like a present tool. That is one of the hardest things about looking back. People live in the knowledge available to them, and also in the advertising, habits, and social comforts around them. You are not foolish because you smoke by the window. You are living in a world where cigarettes have been dressed as glamour, calm, appetite control, conversation, and adulthood. The cigarette shortens slowly. Ash gathers at the tip with a patience that almost feels instructional. The house remains still for a moment. No one is asking for juice. No one is judging the lettuce. No one has noticed whether you took a second helping. You may enjoy the quiet more than the smoke itself. The hand rises, the ash falls, the radio hums, and hunger waits just outside the circle of attention. It will return. Hunger is patient in a way few people are. Soon you will need to think about dinner, about meat, vegetables, potatoes, or whether the leftovers can be made to seem intentional. Soon the children may return louder than necessary. Soon the cigarette will be finished, the ashtray will need emptying, and the window will close. But for a short while, the pause belongs to you. It is not a cure, it is not a meal, it is a narrow little bridge between wanting and waiting. For now, you stand in the soft afternoon light, performing a ritual that belongs to its time. It looks calm. It looks grown up. It looks almost glamorous if one ignores the sink. You press the cigarette out and watch the last thread of smoke rise. The appetite has not vanished. It has merely been asked to sit politely in another room. You sit beneath the salon dryer while warm air hums around your curlers and women's voices rise and fall through the room. The beauty salon is not only a place for hair. It is a soft public office of comparison, news, advice, warning, and small confessions. Someone has tried a new reducing plan. Someone else swears by skipping bread. Another woman says her cousin lost weight before a wedding and looked wonderful, though weddings have always caused people to say unreasonable things. The magazines on the table offer hairstyles, menus, girdles, and youth. You cannot hear every word under the dryer, but you understand enough. The salon smells of setting lotion, shampoo, hairspray, warm metal, cigarette smoke, powder, and the faint sweetness of someone's perfume. Capes rustle. Combs click. Chairs turn with small squeaks. A beautician moves with practiced hands, lifting, pinning, rolling, smoothing, and speaking in the calm tone of someone who has heard every domestic concern at least twice. Around the room, women sit in various stages of becoming presentable. Some have wet hair pinned close to the head. Some have curlers under scarves. Some sit beneath dryers like quiet astronauts waiting for liftoff. The beauty salon is public and private at the same time. You are visible, but also hidden under curlers, towels, clips, and the shared understanding that everyone here has surrendered dignity in pursuit of a better set. This makes conversation easier. A woman may say things under a dryer that she would not say at a luncheon table. Not everything, of course. The salon is not a confessional. It is more practical than that. It is where private concerns enter the room wearing lipstick and good shoes. Reducing talk fits naturally here because beauty is already the main subject. Even when no one says it directly. A woman mentions she has cut out bread. Another says she has started grapefruit again. A third claims that her doctor gave her something to help, then lowers her voice, though the dryer is making enough noise to protect national secrets. Someone says a friend lost inches at a salon downtown. Someone else says cottage cheese works if you can stand it. Advice moves from chair to chair, not always accurate, not always safe, but usually offered with warmth. Women are trying to help one another inside a system that has made them compare themselves. That is the tender and tiring part. The magazines on the table reinforce the subject. Their covers show women with glossy hair, clear skin, narrow waists, and faces arranged in the pleasant expression of people who have never had to put laundry away. Inside are dresses, diets, lipstick shades, exercises, new recipes, and advertisements for foundation garments that promise firmness with a smile. You turn a page while the dryer hums. The print shows a woman stretching beside a chair, another holding a plate of salad, another standing in a slip as if being reduced by confidence alone. The salon offers a form of care. Your hair will leave better than it arrived. Your face may look fresher. Your mood may lift because someone else is touching your hair gently, and for once you are not the one doing the work. That matters. A woman who spends the day caring for others may find real comfort in being cared for, even in a room full of gossip and chemical fumes. But the care comes with standards. A good set, a neat manicure, a fresh look, a slimmer figure, a youthful line. The body is always part of the appointment, even when only the hair is being washed. You listen as one woman jokes that her husband noticed her weight but not the new curtains. The room laughs because it is funny, and because it is not. Another woman says she simply cannot keep sweets in the house. Someone suggests keeping busy. Everyone in the room is already busy. That does not stop the advice. The beautician may add her own view while separating curls with a comb. She has seen women before weddings, after babies, after arguments, before vacations, and before doctor appointments. She knows which faces are excited and which are pretending. A beauty salon can hold a great deal of female knowledge without ever sounding official. It knows which diet is fashionable, which girdle rolls at the waist, which husband is difficult, which woman is tired, and which cake recipe is too good to make during reducing. You sit there with warm air surrounding your head, half soothed and half measured. The sound of the dryer blurs the room, making every voice feel distant and close at once. For a few minutes you are part of a little community built from curlers, coffee, ashtrays, advice, and shared effort. The pressure is still there, but at least it has company. When the dryer stops, the room becomes suddenly clear. The beautician removes the hood, checks the curls, and begins shaping the set. In the mirror, your face appears under arranged hair, familiar and slightly improved by expert hands. You may feel prettier. You may feel lighter. You may feel that you have been warned about bread by 5 women in a magazine before noon. You pay, gather your handbag, and step back into the day with your hair carefully shaped. The salon has not solved the problem. It has simply curled it neatly. You step into a reducing salon and hear the low mechanical hum of machines designed to roll, shake, heat, vibrate, or otherwise persuade the body to become more obedient. The room smells faintly of powder, warm rubber, lotion, and hope. Some salons promised inch loss, spot reducing, steam cabinets, massage tables, slenderizing treatments, and the lovely possibility that modern equipment could do what willpower found tiring. The machines look impressive. That is their first achievement. You stand near one with straps, rollers, or pads and wonder whether progress has finally found a way to make lying down count as effort. The room is bright, clean, and arranged with the confidence of a place selling improvement by appointment. There may be framed advertisements on the wall, not readable from where you stand, just smiling figures and graceful outlines suggesting that the future has a waist. A receptionist or attendant speaks pleasantly. Other women wait with handbags in their laps, shoes placed neatly, faces composed in that special public expression that says one is not embarrassed, merely modern. This is not a doctor's office, not exactly. It is not a gym, either. It is a beauty service with machinery, which gives it a pleasing scientific air. The 1950s were full of faith in devices. Machines washed clothes, mixed batter, polished floors, preserved food, dried hair, and promised to make life smoother. It was not such a large leap to imagine a machine might also smooth the body. Some reducing salons and beauty businesses offered passive exercise machines, vibrating belts, rolling tables, steam cabinets, massage, heat treatments, and claims about inch loss or problem areas. The language could be careful or bold, depending on who was selling. Spot reducing was a tempting idea because it suggested that one difficult part of the body could be addressed without the rest of life becoming involved. This was very appealing if the rest of life contained children, dinner, ironing, and a husband who thought helpful comments were a public service. You are shown to a machine. Perhaps it has a wide belt that fits around the hips or waist and shakes with great seriousness. Perhaps it has rollers that move beneath you while you lie on a table. Perhaps it uses heat, wrapping, massage, or steam to create the feeling that something important is happening. Something is happening. Whether it is the thing promised is another matter. The belt begins to move, buzzing and tugging with mechanical enthusiasm. Your body jiggles. The machine works hard. You, in theory, are also working hard, though mostly by remaining attached to it. There is a strange comfort in that. Dieting asks you to refuse. Exercise asks you to move. A reducing machine asks you to show up and be acted upon. It is modern convenience applied to body anxiety, and one can understand the appeal. You may feel relaxed. You may enjoy the warmth. You may like having time set aside for yourself. You may leave feeling smoother, lighter, or simply glad to have been in a room where no one asked you to make lunch. That counts for something. Many treatments probably offered temporary changes, comfort, or the pleasant feeling of care more than lasting transformation. But hope does not always request a full scientific hearing before booking an appointment. It wants a result by Saturday. Around you, machines hum and click. Women talk softly, or not at all. A towel is folded over a chair. Lotion gleams in a bottle. The room has the calm seriousness of a place where private worries have been turned into services with price lists. That is one reason it belongs in this story. A woman watching her figure could be offered advice, garments, menus, medicines, cigarettes, exercises, and now machinery. The pressure came from many directions, and so did the solutions. Some were helpful, some were harmless, some were risky, some were mostly theatre with rollers. The reducing salon sold the idea that modern technology could assist with the shape expected by fashion and marriage and mirrors. It also gave women a space where appearance concerns could be spoken aloud without sounding vain. Everyone there understood why you had come. No long explanation was required. The machine continues its rhythmic shaking. It is difficult to feel dignified while being vibrated by progress, but dignity has already survived girdles, bathroom scales, and luncheon salads, so it remains available in reduced quantities. You listen to the hum and think of the chores waiting at home. Those chores will involve actual lifting, bending, reaching, and walking. They will not come with a receipt, an appointment card, or a claim about inches. Yet here, lying still beneath mechanical effort, the movement feels official because it has been named, priced, and wrapped in the language of beauty. That is another small unfairness. Women's labour at home moves the body all day and is ignored. A machine shakes the body for a while and calls it a treatment. When the session ends, the belt loosens, the rollers stop, or the heat fades. You sit up slowly, adjust your dress, and gather yourself back into public shape. Perhaps you feel refreshed. Perhaps you feel foolish. Perhaps both. The attendant smiles and suggests another appointment. You nod, because hope is polite even when it has just been shaken by a motor. Outside, the afternoon waits with ordinary gravity. The salon has promised effort while lying down, which is a beautiful idea. History unfortunately still expects you to walk home. You stand in a department store fitting room under bright light that seems to have been chosen by someone with a personal interest in hips. The dress is beautiful on the hanger. On you, it has begun asking questions. The mirror shows the waist, the bust, the hemline, the line under the arms, and every place where fabric meets expectation. Ready-made clothing can feel modern and exciting, but it also asks the body to fit the sizes available, not the other way around. A saleswoman waits outside with pins, patience, and professional calm. You turn slightly and discover that calm is not the same as comfort. The fitting room is small, curtained, and warm from other women's decisions. There may be a little stool, a hook on the wall, a paper tag brushing your wrist, and a mirror large enough to become a problem. Outside, the department store hums with soft footsteps, elevator bells, cash registers, perfume counters, and the pleasant rustle of dresses moving along racks. Shopping can be exciting. It can feel modern, public, and hopeful. A new dress promises a new version of yourself, or at least a cleaner one with fewer breakfast stains. The racks are full of colour, shape, and possibility. Shirt-waist dresses, pencil skirts, full skirts, fitted jackets, summer cottons, wool suits, evening clothes for better occasions, all waiting under store lights with the confidence of garments that have not yet met ordinary bodies. Ready-made clothing offered convenience and choice, but it also brought the quiet authority of sizes. A dress did not know your morning, your children, your work, your age, your last baby, your lunch, or your bones. It knew a number on a tag. If the number did not suit you, the fault could feel personal, even when the problem was simply cut, fabric, brand, or the unreasonable optimism of a waistband. You pull the dress over your head or step into it carefully, trying not to disturb your hair. The fabric slides, catches, and settles. You smooth the front. You turn to the side. The mirror reports everything with the cool loyalty of glass. The dress may pull slightly across the bust or sit too tight at the waist. The hem may be perfect, which is almost rude when the rest has become complicated. You hear the saleswoman outside ask how you are getting along. You say fine, because fine is the word women use when trapped in a curtain with evidence. She may be kind. She may be skilled. She may know that every body differs and every dress lies in its own way. She may also suggest a girdle, a larger size, a different cut, or a small alteration in the calm voice of someone who has watched thousands of women negotiate with cloth. Alterations are normal. Pins, hems, side seams, and darts are part of dressing well. But when the culture already tells women to keep slim, even a practical suggestion can land like a verdict. You remind yourself that a dress is not a moral witness. Then the zipper pauses, and the reminder weakens. Department stores could be social theatres as much as shops. Other women may be nearby, trying on dresses behind their own curtains. A friend may be waiting outside. Your mother, sister, or neighbour may have opinions. The saleswoman may bring another size with tack so smooth it almost disappears. Shopping for clothes can become a public lesson in private feeling. You want the dress to fit because it is pretty, because you need it, because money is limited, because the old one is worn, because an event is coming, or because sometimes a woman wants to feel lovely without first submitting a report to the zipper. You try the belt. It circles the waist and tells a shorter story than you hoped. You look at the tag again. The size may not be perfectly standard across makers, but numbers still have emotional talent. They can turn cotton and thread into biography. The mirror catches your face as you look at yourself. Not only the body, but the watching. You see yourself seeing yourself. That is exhausting in a very quiet way. Still, there may be pleasure here. The colour is flattering. The skirt moves beautifully. The collar frames your face. The right dress can lift the mood and make the body feel at home. Clothes are not the enemy. The problem is the pressure that makes every fitting feel like a test of discipline. You try another dress. This one fits better at the waist but pulls at the shoulders. The next fits the shoulders and gives the waist opinions. Bodies are three-dimensional. Clothing racks prefer simpler stories. After a while, you choose one that can be altered, or you leave with nothing, or you buy stockings instead because stockings ask fewer questions until they run. You step out of the fitting room with your own dress back on, smoothing the skirt as if nothing has happened. The saleswoman smiles. The store continues. The perfume counter shines. Somewhere, another woman is turning before another mirror and discovering that modern retail has excellent lighting and very little mercy. You walk toward the escalator or the street with your handbag held neatly, carrying either a package or a small disappointment. The dress on the hanger was only fabric. In the mirror, it became a conversation. You stand on a small bedroom rug and begin a few careful exercises before the household fully wakes. Toe touches, side bends, leg lifts, arm circles, the sort of movements shown in magazines by smiling women who never appear to be interrupted by children asking where socks live. Exercise for women was often framed around grace, beauty, posture, and reducing rather than strength for its own sake. You move quietly, listening for footsteps in the hall. The room is cool. Your housecoat shifts as you bend. The exercise is brief, but the hope attached to it is large. Morning light is just beginning to soften the curtains. The bed is made enough to suggest discipline, though the pillows may still remember sleep. Your slippers sit nearby. A chair holds yesterday's dress. The floorboards give a small creak under your feet, and you pause, because early exercise loses some of its glamour if a child appears in the doorway and asks why mother is bowing to the dresser. You raise your arms slowly and try to remember the routine from the magazine. Bend at the waist, stretch to the side, lift the leg, tighten the stomach. Breathe naturally, which is easy advice until one is folded halfway toward the rug while worrying about toast. Women's exercise advice in the 1950s often arrived with language about figure, charm, youth, posture, and poise. The aim was not usually to become strong in a way that might alarm the furniture. It was to stay trim, graceful, neat, and feminine. A firm waist, slim hips, a better carriage, a youthful line. The body was encouraged to move, but politely. No sweating in a way that looked too serious. No strength for its own sake. No suggestion that you might enjoy having arms that could lift more than laundry, although laundry had already made its views clear. The movements are small but real. You stretch upward and feel your side pull. You bend down toward your toes and discover that your body has its own morning opinions. Your hair shifts. Your housecoat opens slightly at the knee. You straighten quickly because the room is private, but privacy in a family home is usually on a very short lease. Somewhere a pipe knocks, somewhere a child turns over. The exercise must fit into the tiny space before breakfast, before questions, before the day assigns you to everyone else. That is why it feels both hopeful and slightly sad. It is time you have stolen from the morning, but only a little, and only if the house does not notice. You do another side bend. The magazine woman made this look like a pleasant act of self-improvement. She was smiling, hair arranged, waist already narrow enough to suggest the exercise was merely ceremonial. She did not appear to be thinking about school lunches, grocery money, or whether the bathroom scale would become rude again tomorrow. Printed routines often had that quality. They offered a clean little plan in a clean little drawing. 10 minutes a day, a few simple moves, better posture by spring. A slimmer waist if one is faithful. The body on the page seems grateful for instruction. Your body is more practical. It remembers carrying laundry, reaching high cupboards, bending over beds, scrubbing corners, and sleeping badly because a child coughed at 2 a.m. It does not object to exercise. It only asks whether this will be counted as care, punishment, or another task. You lift one leg carefully behind you, holding the back of a chair for balance. The chair, unlike most of history, is supportive. You count softly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Though in script prose the numbers live quietly in the mind and do not need a public ceremony. You lower the leg and try the other. There is a small pleasure in moving because you chose to move, not because the sink demanded it. There is also pressure in the reason you began. You may want more energy, better health, a looser dress, a kinder mirror, or the feeling that your body belongs to you before it belongs to anyone else's opinion. Those are not the same wish, though the magazine tends to place them all under the smiling word reducing. Exercise can be good. Movement can feel wonderful. A morning stretch can wake the blood and clear the mind. The trouble is when every motion becomes a request for approval from a dress size. You bend again. The rug is faded in places. The room smells of sheets, cold cream, and the faint powder left from yesterday. Outside the door, the house is beginning to stir. Soon the kettle will need lighting or the percolator will need attention. Soon someone will call for you. Soon the exercises will be folded away with the bedclothes, and the idea of doing them every morning will be tested by real mornings. You finish with a few arm circles and stand still, breathing quietly. Nothing dramatic has happened. No inches have vanished in a flash. No magazine editor appears to applaud. But for a few minutes, before the house took your name in vain, you were alone with your own body. It bent, stretched, protested mildly, and kept going. That may be the most honest exercise of all. You enter the kitchen after everyone has gone to bed, and the room feels different, quieter, almost kind. The refrigerator hums. A small light from the stove or hallway rests on the counter. You are not planning a meal. You are only standing there, perhaps cutting a sliver of cheese, eating a cracker, finishing a spoonful of something, or taking one bite of cake so narrow it can claim to be structural repair. Reducing advice is strictest in daylight, when plates are visible and control can be performed. At night, hunger becomes private. So does tiredness. So does the small need for comfort. The kitchen has lost its daytime voice. No one is asking what is for dinner. No one is complaining about peas. No one is watching the bread. The chairs are pushed in, or nearly. The dishes are stacked, dried, or left in the sink with the weary honesty of a house that has done enough. A tea towel hangs over the oven handle. The floor is cool beneath your feet. The clock sounds louder now, each tick moving through the room with the confidence of something that has never dieted. You stand there in your robe or nightgown and listen to the refrigerator motor, steady and low. The whole day has been filled with decisions. Grapefruit or toast, butter or no butter, salad or sandwich, cake or no cake, a small portion at dinner, a smile after the comment. A cigarette instead of a snack, a pill perhaps, a walk past the pantry without opening it. By night, self-control can feel less like virtue and more like one more chore that did not get finished. You open the refrigerator door. The small light comes on bright and cold, showing milk, butter, leftovers, lettuce, a covered dish, perhaps the cake plate, perhaps a piece of meat wrapped for tomorrow, perhaps a bowl no one else has identified correctly all week. Refrigerators are honest at night. They show not only food but the work of keeping food in order. The leftovers are meals waiting for new names. The butter is tomorrow's decision. The lettuce is trying to survive. The cake, if present, has become more persuasive in darkness because there are fewer witnesses. You are not greedy. You are tired. This distinction matters, though reducing advice often treats both as the same offence. A day of caring for others can leave a person hungry in more than one way. Hungry for food, yes, but also for quiet, for sweetness, for something not measured, for one moment that belongs to no one else. You cut a sliver of cheese. The knife makes a small sound against the plate. A cracker breaks lightly between your fingers. Perhaps you take a spoonful of cold pudding, a bite of meat, a corner of cake, or a little milk straight into a glass. These are not grand acts. They are the smallest possible negotiations with comfort. In the daytime, a snack can become visible. Someone may ask what you are eating. A child may want some. A husband may make a joke. A magazine may have left its advice open on the table. At night, the kitchen releases you from some of that performance. It does not fully release you from guilt. Guilt is very capable of staying awake, but it softens. The house is quiet, and the food is simply there, no longer dressed for company. You lean against the counter and take the bite. The cheese is cold and salty. The cracker is dry but pleasant. Cake, if it is cake, is sweet in the direct way cake has, not asking to be approved as sensible. The body relaxes a little. This is why nighttime eating can feel so powerful. It is private proof that the body still has a vote after a day of rules. Of course, not every woman sneaks food at night, and not every snack is secret or troubled. Some people eat before bed because they are hungry, some because supper was early, some because there is leftover pie, and life is short, even in a girdle. But in a world where women are asked to watch themselves constantly, the dark kitchen can become a small shelter. No luncheon table, no fitting room mirror, No doctor's chart, no scale under your feet. Just a refrigerator, a counter, a tired woman, and a sliver of something that does not need to become a lesson. You close the refrigerator gently, so the noise does not travel. For a moment the room goes dim again. You may wipe the knife, put the plate back, smooth the cake edge with the care of a person restoring evidence, and tell yourself that tomorrow will be more careful. Tomorrow is always available for improvement. It is one of its less charming habits. Tonight, however, you are here, with the house breathing around you and no one asking you to turn comfort into a number. The body that worked all day has asked for comfort and received a modest answer. You walk back toward the bedroom, leaving the kitchen quiet behind you. The refrigerator hums on, holding tomorrow's lettuce, yesterday's supper, and the secret knowledge that one very thin slice of cake has somehow become structural maintenance. You wake the next morning, and the house is still, as if yesterday's counting, refusing, fastening, smoking, stretching, measuring, and pretending have drifted into the curtains overnight. The bathroom scale waits in its usual place. The magazine remains on the table. The girdle is in the drawer. The refrigerator contains leftovers, lettuce, butter, and the ordinary evidence that bodies must be fed no matter what culture says about them. You stand in the soft morning light and feel the strange loop begin again. In the 1950s, watching your figure could become another invisible household task, renewed daily, praised rarely, and mistaken for vanity when it was often obedience. The room is pale with early light. The air is cool. A car passes outside, then fades away. Somewhere in the house, pipes settle, a child breathes heavily in sleep, and the clock continues its small, loyal work. You sit on the edge of the bed for a moment before standing, feeling the weight of an ordinary body at the start of an ordinary day. Not a problem to be solved, though the decade may not always agree. Not a decorative object, not a sign of moral success or failure. Just a living body that carried baskets, stood at counters, climbed stairs, served dinner, sat under dryers, swallowed coffee, smelled cake, bent over rugs, and tried to keep peace at the table. That should have been enough evidence of usefulness. But the morning has its old customs. The scale may call from the bathroom in its silent little way. The dress in the closet may wait with its zipper. The magazine may still show a smiling woman who appears to have achieved permanent control over appetite, laundry, marriage, and fruit. The day offers the same choices again, not because you failed yesterday, but because domestic life has a circular nature. Meals return, dishes return, laundry returns with almost artistic confidence. So does the instruction to manage yourself quietly while managing everything else. You tie your robe and walk through the room. Perhaps you do not step on the scale today. Perhaps you do. Either choice carries meaning because the culture has taught it to. In many homes, reducing was not one dramatic decision. It was a background rhythm, a smaller breakfast, a careful lunch. A skipped roll, a dress tried on, a cigarette by the window, a comment remembered longer than it deserved, a private bite at night. These small acts could be chosen, pressured, useful, harmful, comforting, annoying, or all of those at once. History is rarely tidy enough to give one clean answer. Some women wanted to lose weight for their own reasons. Some enjoyed exercise, diet menus, beauty routines, and the feeling of control. Some resisted quietly. Some ignored the advice until a special occasion. Some had no leisure for any of it because paid work, poverty, illness, discrimination, or family need left little room for cottage cheese as a lifestyle. The popular image of the trim 1950s housewife was powerful, but it was never the whole story. It was an ideal sold in pages, stores, mirrors, and conversations, and ideals have a way of making real people feel unfinished. You go to the kitchen. Morning smells faintly of coffee grounds, soap, cold air, and whatever dinner left behind. The refrigerator opens with a soft pull, as usual. Inside is the butter that survived yesterday's negotiations, the lettuce that has begun to lose faith, a covered dish that will need a new name by noon, and milk that someone will finish without saying so. Food remains stubbornly practical. It does not care about slogans. It must be bought, cooked, served, saved, stretched, and eaten. A culture can talk about slimness all it likes, but children still want breakfast and adults still need fuel. That is the quiet truth beneath the whole performance. Bodies cannot be managed only as appearances. There are also working things, feeling things, hungry things, tired things, ordinary things. You pour coffee or prepare the pot. The kitchen begins to wake around you, slow and familiar, with all its small shining duties returning. Soon there will be sound, water running, plates shifting, footsteps, a drawer opening, perhaps someone asking where something is while standing beside it. The world will ask you to be pleasant, useful, attractive, thrifty, patient, and somehow free from appetite. You may do your best. You may also have moments when your best includes butter. That is not the collapse of civilization, it is toast. The morning light rests on the table where the magazine lies closed for now. Closed, it looks harmless. Many things do. You stand there quietly, feeling neither victorious nor defeated, only present, which is a more honest achievement than the advice columns usually allowed. Yesterday's familiar rules have not vanished, but they seem smaller in the soft morning light. The body that was measured, shaped, corrected, and advised is still here, ready to carry the day. Perhaps that is the part the old advice kept missing. A woman was never only trying to stay thin, she was trying to live inside expectations that kept returning like laundry. The day begins again, softly and without apology, and somewhere under the sink, the scale waits with nothing new to say. And now, you can let the kitchen grow quiet. You have spent this long, soft day among bathroom scales, magazine menus, grapefruit halves, careful toast, girdle drawers, dress zippers, laundry baskets, calorie charts, cottage cheese plates, salad luncheons, frosted cakes, dinner portions, doctor's offices, little pill bottles, cigarette smoke, beauty salons, reducing machines, department store mirrors, morning stretches, and the small dark comfort of standing alone by the refrigerator when the house has finally stopped asking questions. You have seen how staying thin in the 1950s was rarely just about food. It could be about being admired, being approved of, being a good wife, being a modern woman, being careful, being pleasant, being watched, and somehow cooking generously while eating as though appetite were a small household mistake. There is sadness in that, and tenderness too. The women who lived inside those rules were not foolish for caring. They were moving through a world that measured them in dress sizes, advice columns, dinner plates, mirrors, and remarks that seemed small until they followed them upstairs. And still, they kept going. They fed families, stretched budgets, made cakes, carried laundry, sat with friends, laughed under salon dryers, and found little ways to comfort themselves when the rules became too tight. From here in the present, maybe you can feel grateful for softer clothes, better knowledge, kinder language, and the chance to let a meal simply be a meal. Not perfectly, of course. The present has its own mirrors, and they are not always polite either. But tonight, you can set them down for a while. Let the scale stay under the sink. Let the magazine close. Let the refrigerator hum quietly in another room. You are here now, safe in your own bed, with nothing left to measure and nothing left to prove. So rest gently, breathe slowly, and let that old kitchen fade into darkness, warm, quiet, and far away. Good night.